Hello and welcome to News Central Now. I am Adebola Adedugba. The top stories of this hour. Gunmen attack on Islamic boarding school in Yobe State leaves 3 dead and 1 injured. As prices continue to soar in Nigeria, Federal Consumer Protection Agency warns traders it will clamp down on profiteering. Amnesty calls for urgent probe into disappearance of anti-military government activists in Guinea. And details shortly. Let's start with the security issues where gunmen suspected to be Boko Haram terrorists have invaded Faudiya Islamic boarding school in Yobe State, killing 3 students and injuring 1. The Islamic school, which belongs to the proscribed Muslim Brotherhood movement Shiite, is located in Geidam local government area of the state. Muhammadu Saleh, Ahmed Abdurrahman and Abdullahi Adamo were said to have been killed, while Sani Haruna, who was injured, is currently receiving medical treatment. Now, spokesman of the Nigeria Police Force in the state, Dungus Abdul Karim, who confirmed the incident, revealed that the attackers arrived at the school on motorcycles armed with AK-47 rifles around 4 on Friday, shooting sporadically. Meanwhile, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tarid Lagbaja, has assured Nigerians that the military is making significant progress in the fight against banditry, terrorism, and kidnapping across the country. Speaking in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, at the closing session of the Chief of Army Combined Second and Third Quarters Conference 2024, Lagbaja expressed confidence that the Army is on the victory path and will soon overcome the nation's security challenges. In a related development, the Defense Headquarters reported that 1,166 terrorists were killed in military operations conducted in August. And during the bi-weekly briefing in Abuja, Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, disclosed that 1,096 suspected terrorists were arrested and 721 kidnapped civilians were rescued last month. Away from security issues, prominent figures and stakeholders converged in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, during the News Central's Town Hall series to discuss the recent End Bad Governance protests that happened across the country. Speakers at the event spoke on the issues that birthed the protest. While emphasizing democratic right to citizens to protest, some of the speakers urged the government to engage in genuine dialogue to address the concerns of the people. The issue of suppression of the rights of the media also came to the fore.
Decide to call for a dialogue in which we said is the only way for us to sit down and negotiate with them. But very unfortunate, they take it the way they want, and they did the same thing that they always did as a politicians. Instead of reaching out to us to face our major challenges, in which we mention it to them that those things that we came out to set in the protest, in which education is part of it, unemployment is part of it, fuel subsidy is part of it, insecurity is part of it. All those things we mentioned, none has been attained to. All we see is the Minister of Youth calling his friends to negotiate with them.
I said the Nigerian revolution will start in northern Nigeria. That was at least 5 years ago. My reason for saying so is the knowledge that northern Nigeria is the most afflicted part of Nigeria, but it had been kept supine because of religion. The political and economic class have kept the people underfoot, and they are responding violently because even though you are providing leadership to a subset, there are other people who are not captured in that leadership.
It may be a coincidence that the very first person that appeared on the list of those that were brutalized by the police happened to be from New Central, Bernard Akede, who is also a friend of mine. Civic space in the country. So what you're seeing really is what I'll call the liberalization and democratization of intimidation and harassment of journalists in this country. What do I mean? In those days, it used to be within the purview of perhaps the police and maybe the DSS. Whenever they have a disagreement with certain people in the media or certain media organizations, to be the ones to carry out actions, repressive actions against them. But nowadays, it has been liberalized. The governors have gotten into the act. So you write anything that is critical of a governor, a civilian governor for that matter. The next thing is that you are picked up and you are locked up somewhere. You write something that is critical of security forces, whether the army, the police, maybe an IG somewhere gives order, and then they pick up a journalist. The same thing at the level of the military. So everybody has gotten into the act of intimidating journalists and the media. And that absolutely is unacceptable, and we have made it very clear to them that we no longer tolerate that situation where people can no longer express their opinion. It's a fundamental right.
The Town Hall series is new centre's efforts at providing a veritable platform for the government and relevant stakeholders to address burning societal issues. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, has announced plans to transfer the operations and maintenance of its Warri and Kaduna refineries to private operators. And this was disclosed in a statement released on the company's official X handle on Friday. The Warri refinery, located in Delta State, was commissioned in 1978 with a nameplate distillation capacity of 125,000 barrels per day. It also houses a petrochemical plant commissioned in 1988, producing 13,000 million tons per annum of polypropylene and 18,000 MTA of carbon black. The refinery primarily supplies the south and southwest regions of Nigeria. The Kaduna refinery, commissioned in 1980 with an initial capacity of 50,000 barrels per day, was later expanded to 110,000 barrels per day. The refinery supplies petroleum products to northern Nigeria, with a second crude train added in 1983 for producing lubricating oils. And still on economic-related stories, the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC, has given traders and market stakeholders a one-month ultimatum to reduce the prices of goods or face enforcement actions. Speaking at the stakeholders' engagement on exploitative pricing in Abuja on Thursday, the newly appointed Executive Vice Chairman of the FCCPC, Mr. Tunji Bello, warned that enforcement would commence after the moratorium period. Bello said the meeting aimed to tackle the rising trend of unreasonable pricing of consumer goods and unwholesome practices by market association. Stakeholders attributed the continuous increase in prices to factors such as high transportation costs, insecurity, and multiple taxation. On its part, Bello acknowledged these challenges and assured the government's commitments to addressing them. And to unpack this, I'm joined by the CEO, Asher Investments Limited, and that's Mokhtar Mohammed. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me on the news.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
All right, let me start by asking what are the potential economic implications of enforcing price controls on traders and also market stakeholders? Do you think the one-month ultimatum is enough for them to adjust their pricing strategies?
Look, as a government, when you see such pronouncement, it just tells you how serious a government can be. I don't know how you should be talking about price control in a capitalized economy where every man has the right to whatever he wants to sell, and the other people have a right to buy it or not. That by the way. And secondly, you've admitted to a fact that there are a lot of challenges. Why are you not trying to deal with those challenges? Why are you always just trying to make sure that you push the farmers or the traders to one side of the, that's what really makes sense for the government at the moment. I don't think they are really ready to address the problem. Like you said in your introduction, multiple taxation, high cost of transportation, and other challenges, insecurity, the movement of these are not things that can be addressed in 1 month. So when you are giving farmers ultimatum and yet importation of some of the machineries that they use for production, for food production, still go through the import, export, willing buyer, willing seller window. Today, 1,600, tomorrow, 1,560, tomorrow, 1,650. You are just trying to, I mean, it's more or less like a government that doesn't know what to do, and then you now look for soft targets. And for now, the soft targets are the traders.
Well, speaking of problems, one problem we do have in Nigeria is the inflation rate. I mean, do you think the FCCPC's move will impact overall inflation rates in the country?
What you have to do, you just need to ask, is that the right thing to do to bring down inflation? Is it price control that brings down inflation? We've done this, remember we did the FX control with the EFCC reading Bureau de change. Where did it end? At the end of the day, the exchange rate has gone to as high as 1,900 and now it's selling for 1,600. So you don't use such methods. It could give you short-term gain, but at the long run, how are you going to implement it in how many markets in Nigeria? Do you have the manpower? Do you have manpower to begin to implement that? Or you just go to supermarkets? And then how many Nigerians actually go to supermarket to buy all these things? You're talking about the machine. I listened to Mr. Tunji Bello talking about the machine, branding machine that was about $90-something in America, and he's selling for about $8,000 here in Nigeria. If you look at the exchange rate, and you ask yourself, so you know all this, why is it that you two also are not doing what the Americans are doing, which is give people loans to be able to do businesses? And you are saying that you are not thinking about the cost of transportation. You are not looking into your exchange rate, which is about 1,600, and you don't know how much the person pays in terms of bringing in the goods of that. I mean, that goods at that amount, because it has been proven now it's more expensive to bring in goods to Nigeria than what you bought it abroad. Because sometimes you buy a good for $1,000 in America, then you are coming to Nigeria, you are paying a tariff of $1,500. So they really get to get their acts together and then see how they can deal with core inflation, how to do it with core inflation, because core inflation in Nigeria is largely driven by production costs, economic policies like what they have made now, then microeconomic instability, then monetary policy decisions, which has also been one of the major causes of inflationary pressure in Nigeria, high cost of borrowing. They are not looking at that. They are not thinking of addressing that. Hiking rates has not brought down anything, and yet we are still doing the same thing and we expect different results. So I think they are just trying to play politics as usual, so that we think they are doing something. They are doing nothing about it.
All right, Mr. Mohammed, we'll have to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Just hold your thoughts. Thank you for staying tuned. I was still talking about the FCCPC's enforcement of pricing on traders and also market stakeholders. We're talking to our guest, Mokhtar Mohammed, CEO of Asia Investment Limited, before we took that short break. Also joined by the CEO of Friska Farms Limited, and that's Usman Imana. But then let me continue with you, Mr. Mohammed. You were talking about one of the measures to help address this surge in prices of goods to be loans, giving loans to traders. But then beyond loans, how can we curb, high transportation costs, insecurity, as well as multiple taxation as factors affecting prices of goods?
Well, all what you just mentioned are all physical policies. So that means it's up to the government. You and I cannot go to the road and begin to implement that. It's up to the government to do that. And then I don't think they know what they want to do as regard that, because you talk about insecurity. You need you and I we do not have access to arm. You talk about transportation. They've told us about CMG buses. Up till now, we've not seen any of those CMG buses bringing goods into Lagos, especially Lagos. So again, you talk about implementing stopping multiple taxation. They have a special committee that has been set up since the president came in. That committee has been working up to this moment. They are trying to get the state government and others to come together so that we could have a reduction in multiple taxation. We've not seen any result yet from that committee. So most of the things you just highlighted are in the hands of the government to implement that. And another also is the physical side. So the physical authority need to up their game and make sure all these things comes to bear sooner than later.
Let me get a perspective of Mr. Imana. Mr. Imana, just to find out from you, get your perspective on what you think could be the economic impact of enforcing prices on traders. Do you see this efficient or even sustainable?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. Honestly speaking, I don't think that it is a sustainable it's a sustainable policy. I'm still struggling to understand how it will be implemented. I'm trying to get more information, but I doubt that it is going to be sustainable. Just like the previous speaker said, there are. What should have been done is to address the key issues that traders and manufacturers alike are facing. Traders don't just increase their prices for the sake of it. They do that in response to the economic realities. So before you can ask or try to, you don't even need to enforce price reduction. The forces of supply and demand will do that for you freely. So when you have when traders can move products easily at an affordable price, and they're able to do business, and ease of doing business is increased, more people will get into different businesses. And when you have more people in trading in a particular product, the price will automatically come down because people will compete for customers. So again, I would say maybe my level of understanding is still quite low, but I struggle to see how this will be implemented and how it can be sustainable, especially in a democracy that we claim to be running in this country.
Okay, just to follow your train of thought, you talked about addressing key issues. I mean, one of the key issues raised by some of the traders is that there is insecurity impacting prices of goods and commodities, as well as high cost transportation costs. You talked about ease of doing business, but how best, if you could expatiate, how can we really address insecurity from your point of view, as well as the high cost of transportation that impacts prices of goods and services?
Okay, so for insecurity, I'll key into commodities as foodstuff, and I'm assuming that this is insecurity in the farms. So farmers are not able to go and farm to produce as much, so you have less produce, and because there is a shortage in supply, you have an increase in price. That's the assumption I'm working with. The truth is, I don't think, based on my experience and what I have, my studies, that is not the only reason why we have increase in price. Insecurity is part of it, but there's also the devaluation of the naira. You see, everybody is an economist, right? And especially when you are trading, or when you're running a business, be it farming or trading, you are an economist. What you are trying to do is how you can get the best value for the best value for what you are selling. So you want to get the highest pay for the value that you are bringing to the table. So there's insecurity on one hand, but the truth is, if you are a farmer, if you're a big time farmer in the north, and you have your produce, and you can sell that produce in Niger Republic or Cameroon or Chad and earn dollars, you prefer to do that than to sell an naira, because the truth is the value of those people's currency have increased. So if they were buying from you at $6, right, in the past, $6 at 700 naira was 4,200. Today, $6 is over 9,000. So if as a farmer in the north, I'll do everything possible to carry my goods across the border and sell, it's a case of who is going to pay me the most. But that's one hand. I'll come back to the security. For insecurity, and you have asked what can be done, there was some time in the news when, I'm not sure if it is the current president or somebody in government has said something about forest rangers. We need to look at what is done in other countries, right? The security agencies are stretched thin, and kudos to them. They've done a lot in terms of curbing insecurity.
Mr. Imana, I wish we had more time, but thank you so much, gentlemen, for your perspective on the new CEO, Friska Farms Limited, Usman Imana, as well as Mokhtar Mohammed, CEO of Asia Investment Limited. Gentlemen, many thanks indeed.
Thank you for having me.
Away from that, the newly elected president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Arthur Mosegwe, has officially assumed office as the 32nd president of the NBA in a ceremony held in Lagos. Elected to the position by defeating two other contestants in July 2023, Mosegwe has taken over from Yakubu Megiako, whose tenure ends on Thursday, August 29, 2024.
Gathering of esteemed legal professionals, including past presidents, general secretaries, chairmen of branches, and members of the inner and outer bar. The NBA Transition Implementation Committee presented a comprehensive handover report outlining the achievement and challenges of the outgoing administration.
The library project and the remodeling of the NBA Secretariat Conference Hall and other areas projects. We also identified and mentioned other areas that will require the urgent consideration of the new administration.
Outgoing President Yakubu Megiako delivered a heartfelt welcome address praising the incoming president and expressing confidence in his ability to lead the association to greater heights.
At the helm of the affairs of the Nigerian Bar Association for the next 2 years, after I yield and hand over the baton to him, is this gentleman, Mazi Afam Josiah Osigwe, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Life Bencher.
The highlight of the event was the presentation of certificates of return to the incoming president and national officers, followed by the swearing-in ceremony. The outgoing president then formally handed over the reins to President Arthur Mosegwe, marking a new era for the NBA. In his inaugural address, Mosegwe unveiled his vision for the association, outlining plans to tackle pressing issues across various legal jurisprudence, including judicial reform, human rights, and access to justice.
The overriding challenge of the judiciary today is to restore the dignity of the judiciary as in the past, in order to become the trusted champion of the democracy and development in Nigeria. Our appellate courts must return to delivering judgments that provide policy directions for other courts in the country in order to support our courts and the profession towards achieving the above objective. We hereby set up the Adjudicative Review Committee, ARC, of the NBA. The committee will periodically review the decisions from the appellate courts, especially the Supreme Court and Court of Appeal, and present well-researched commentaries on such cases that nudge the courts towards a more coherent and consistent adjudication that promotes the rule of law and democratic freedoms.
The NBA plays a vital role in promoting the rule of law, upholding justice, and advocating human rights. With a new leadership at the helm, the association is poised to tackle the challenges facing the legal profession and contributes meaningfully to the development of the Nigerian judiciary. In Lagos for News Central, I am Igbalani Omoni.
No, when I come out,
The Parent Teachers Association, PTA, has expressed support for the federal government's decision to ban candidates under the age of 18 from sitting from the West African Senior School Certificate Examination at the National Examination Council exams. And speaking with the Punch, PTA National President Alhaji Haruna Danjuma backed to policy stating it aligns with existing educational standards. He emphasized that sitting for these exams at 18 years ensures candidates have reached appropriate level of maturity, and such exams are not designed for students below this age threshold. Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Maman, recently announced a new age policy that sets minimum age for secondary school leaving exams at 18 years. Labour Party presidential candidates in 2023 elections, Peter Obi, has condemned threats made by a Canada-based Nigerian woman, Amaka Somberja, against Nigerians of Yoruba and Benin descent. In a video clip that began circulating on X on Tuesday, Somberja was heard making anti-Yoruba and Benin remarks during a virtual meeting on TikTok where she threatened to poison individuals from this community. The incident prompted the chairman of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Abike Dabiri-Erewa, to reveal the woman's identity, while the House of Representatives called for her immediate arrest. Reacting on Friday, Obi denounced the comments as divisive, stating on his X handle that such behavior has no place in the society. He urged Nigerians to reject tribalism and religious divisions, advocating for unity and a prosperous nation. You're watching News Central now. When we return, Lagos aims to restore order and cleanliness. Stay with us, don't go away. Thank you for staying tuned. In a move to restore order and cleanliness to the streets of Lagos, the Lagos State Environmental Sanitation Corps has arrested 12 miscreants during surveillance operation in several areas of the state. The crackdown followed complaints from concerned citizens about disturbances caused by miscreant and destitute individuals. Lagos State Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources, Tokunbo Wahab, announced the arrests on X on Friday. He made mention that operatives of the Lagos State Environmental Sanitation Corps, also known as KAI, were deployed to monitor troubled spots including Falomo in Ikoyi, Adeola Odeko and Sanusi Fafunwa in Victoria Island, and Chisco, Ikate, Mawa along the Lekki-Ajah Expressway. The operation led to the arrest of 12 suspects, comprising 10 adults and 2 minors. Wahab notes that the suspect will be arraigned in courts of competent jurisdiction. And now to health matters. Nigeria is on high alert as Mpox cases surge globally, raising concerns about the potential entry of an aggressive variant into the country. In response, the Federal Ministry of Health has issued a nationwide warning, urging states to intensify surveillance and preventive measures to prevent the virus from being imported. Although no cases of this aggressive variant has been reported in Nigeria, states are not taking any chances on ramping up their surveillance efforts. Public awareness campaigns have also been launched to educate citizens about the risks and prevention strategies. Nigerians are being advised to avoid close contact with anyone showing symptoms, maintain good hygiene, and report any suspicious cases to health authorities. President Bola Tinubu has approved a 50% electricity subsidy for public hospitals and educational institutions to ease their financial burden. Minister of State for Health, Dr. Tunji Alausa, announced his subsidy on Thursday while speaking to journalists in Kaduna after inaugurating several projects at the National Ear Care Center, including 200-capacity auditorium, student hostel, oxygen plant, molecular laboratory, powerhouse, ENT specialist clinic, operating theater, and female children ward. Alausat stated that the subsidy, part of the present efforts to support the health and education sectors, will be implemented soon by the Minister of Power. He adds that the initiative is to significantly lower energy costs for public hospitals, universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education, allowing these institutions to allocate more resources towards delivering quality services. The need for a preventive and survival-centered approach has been stressed as critical in reporting sexual-related violence, and this was at a workshop conducted by the International Committee on Red Cross for Selected Journalists in Borno State. Youth Central's Umaru Kirawa was there and now reports.
First, the use of appropriate terminology like sexual violence or sexual and gender-based violence instead of rape, as well as violation instead of abuse, among others, were encouraged during the engagement. The training is part of broader efforts to improve coverage of sexual violence and ensure that reporting practices support survivors and contribute to preventing future incidents.
That while we gather content, while we interview survivors, while we are reporting on issues related to sexual violence, we take cognizance of the safety of the survivor, both physical safety and psychological safety. Non-discrimination, that is impartiality, provide support and services without discrimination or conditions.
Like the privacy of survivors or their families or their relatives, especially now in this digital world, right? Everything can be traced, so just be careful when you're posting anything.
These skills, the ICRC hopes, will help improve the quality of reporting on sensitive issues and ensure that survivors receive the support and dignity they deserve.
The workshop is so timely and enriching because the resource persons were able to delve deeply into issues around the gender-based violence and how journalists are to look at it from the context of reportage and how their stories should be survival-centered stories.
Based on the outcome of this training, NUJ will engage partners that are into sexual violence to see how we can have the referral pathways where NUJ will partner with the organizations in sensitizing and enlightening members of the public on how to access such pathways so that to ease the challenges of survivors accessing some of these services.
Field experience were also shared by the journalists on challenges and strategies to reporting sexual violence. This initiative represents a key step in enhancing the role of the media in addressing and preventing sexual violence. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Coming up, 14 killed, 29 injured in bus-truck collision near Bamako. We have details shortly. Join us again. Thank you for staying with us. And still in West Africa, Amnesty International and 17 Guinean rights organizations have called for urgent investigation into the enforced disappearance of 2 Guinean anti-junta activists who went missing on July 9, 2024. Civil Rights Society activists Omar Silla, better known as Fonike Mengwe, and Mamadou Bilo disappeared after they were arrested more than 7 weeks ago, according to their pro-democracy movement National Front for the Defense of the Constitution, FNDC. The FNDC slammed the disappearance as a kidnapping, but Guinean authorities have denied detaining them. The joint statement called for the findings of the investigation to be made public and those suspected of being criminally responsible be brought to justice in fair trials before ordinary civilian courts. At least 14 people were killed and 29 injured in a collision between a bus and a truck in Mali on Thursday, the Transport Ministry has confirmed. The accident occurred around 6 a.m. on a major road near the town of Fana, east of the capital, Bamako. According to the ministry, the bus was traveling from Fana to Bamako, while the truck was headed in the opposite direction. No further detail were provided. Roads accidents were frequent in Mali, often attributed to poor road conditions, faulty vehicle, and human error. In July, a similar incident claimed 16 lives where two buses collided in central Mali. In the south of the continent, the corruption trial of former South African President Jacob Zuma has been postponed once again. Zuma appeared in the court on Thursday, where his trial related to arms deals was rescheduled for September 11th. The delay comes as Zuma's legal team continues to push for removal of prosecutor Billy Dana from the case. Following the court's appearance, Zuma addressed his supporters from a stage, reiterating his stance on the ongoing legal battle.
Owenza ubugebengu wangaqhuba ngendlela efanele safaka icala ukuthi wayephula umthetho bekubangwa lokho ukuthi noma kunjani thina sisaqhubeka nalokho ukuthi sifuna ukumsusa la ngoba waphula umthetho.
Abantu abano NSFAS abakwazi ukufunda bengakwazi uku-afford school fees but bayakwazi ukufunda through unqamalala. Unqamalala uyamaza umuntu omnyama. Ekubeni abanye abantu baba selfish bayicabangele bona babe power hungry yena ekubeni maye khona ebekiwe uyakwazi ucabangela omunye umuntu omnyama aphinda acabangele nomuntu omncane ngoba esaba isikhathi sebebadala kahle hle eqinisweni but uyakwazi ukuthi asirecognize thina njengabantu abasha ingakho ngila ingakho futhi ngizoma nonqamalala noma inini.
President Emmanuel Macron is facing an uphill battle as he tries to revive negotiations over a new government for France, with the leftist alliance refusing to take part after his rejection as he rejected its candidates for prime minister. More than 7 weeks after an inconclusive parliamentary election that cost his allies relative majority, Macron has still not named a new prime minister to take over from the current caretaker administration. The president said he was meeting anyone who wants to come and work for the overriding national interest after several rounds of talks over the weekend and Monday failed to produce a breakthrough. Macron told reporters that the work is going ahead and the door is open to prospective partners. And sports, recent years have witnessed a concerning increase in cardiovascular issues among athletes, challenging the perception of athletes as paragons of health. Various factors contribute to this trend, including intense physical demands, undiagnosed congenital conditions, and stress. A recent tragic example is the case of Juan Ezequirodo, a 27-year-old Uruguayan player who collapsed during a game in Brazil and passed away 5 days later. Dr. Babatunde Akimbino, National Publicity Secretary of the Nigerian Association of Sport Medicine, emphasizes the need for improved safety measures.
What we should do going forward should be to say, let's have medical facilities in every stadium in Nigeria, at least in state capitals, where there is a doctor that has a medical team in every stadium. That way is attached to all the teams, a doctor or two doctors, it's a medical team anyway. And then, of course, let's take pre-competition medical assessment a lot more. We must put policy in place to ensure that if states, competitions, organizers, or whatever sporting association do not have basic minimum standard in terms of sports medicine facilities and sports science structures, it doesn't go on. We should have defibrillators around, for example. These are common things in the developed world where on the street, at street corners, there are defibrillators. The person goes into cardiac arrest, you can shock the person back to life. Those are ABCDs of cardiac life support and all of that. But we really don't do all of that here. And we play a lot of lip service to it. And I hope we can begin to call upon the professionals and places to ensure that they guide us through all of this as we go forward.
Southampton has signed England goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale from Arsenal for a reported £25 million. Ramsdale, who lost his starting position to David Raya last season, made only 6 Premier League appearances in 2023. Now, the 26-year-old expressed enthusiasm about joining Southampton, praising the manager's approach. Ramsdale joined Arsenal in 2021 and made 89 appearances, earning a spot in the PFA's Premier League Team of the Year for 2022-2023. However, he was surprisingly replaced by Raya as Arsenal aimed to improve their squad. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta thanked Ramsdale for his contributions, while Southampton boss Russell Martin believes the move will revitalize Ramsdale's career. Martin highlighted Ramsdale's hunger to reclaim England's #1 position and his winning mentality as key assets for the team. Andre Antonelli, an 18-year-old expected to join Mercedes in 2025, crashed during his Formula One debut in first practice at the Italian Grand Prix. The incident occurred on his second flying lap, but he was uninjured. This outing was part of Mercedes' preparation for his F1 debut. Red Bull's Max Verstappen led the session, followed by Ferrari's Charles Leclerc and McLaren's Lando Norris. Antonelli, driving George Russell's car, spun at Parabolica after setting the fastest middle sector. Mercedes acknowledged the crash as part of Antonelli's learning curve. Team principal Toto Wolff had previously commented on providing supportive environment for young drivers to develop and learn from mistakes. Both Ferrari's drivers also experienced close calls during the session, with Leclerc noting the car was very tricky to drive. And that's all on the news. Let's take a look again at some of the major stories. Gunmen attack on Islamic boarding school in Yobe State has left 3 dead and 1 injured. As prices continue to soar in Nigeria, Federal Consumer Protection Agency has warned traders it will clamp down on profiteering. We also told you that Amnesty has called for urgent probe into disappearance of anti-military government activists in Guinea. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Adebola Adedugba.